It turns out they are not alone. When they are going to make a film in the forest, they are terrorized by three scary masked humans. They have to fight for their lives and try to escape from there. But unfortunately, it is quite impossible, especially when they get lost in the forest. At the beginning of the film, there are three men and women on a camping trip. They are in a dark and cold forest. At that time, they planned to return to the camp they had built earlier, but as if they were lost, the man named Dale felt that he remembered very well that they were already at the location of the tent they made. But why did it disappear? Dale tried to look at the GPS, and it was true that it was the location they had marked. They tried to go around, maybe they only missed a few meters from the tent. But suddenly, they saw a figure of a man wearing a jacket in the middle of the forest with a pretty scary mask. They panicked and decided to leave the masked man. But the problem is, they were surrounded. There was not only one masked man, but it turned out there were several more, some even carrying chainsaws and finishing off Dale, and the rest did not survive. Meanwhile, this man and woman are named Ben and Hope. They are making a film project that must be located in the forest. They will later submit the documentary to the producer to be released on the market. But that night they had difficulty finding the right location for filming. They looked for another location that might suit what they needed. Besides them, there was a cameraman named Sean. Yes, the three of them would make a documentary that would be remembered by many people. Using their car, they got information if there was a suitable location for filming. Actually, filming would take place in the morning, but Hope and the others had to confirm the location. Until finally they were lucky to find a cabin that looked new and clean. They tried to approach it, and soon Hope heard a woman scream from inside the cabin. The cabin door was unlocked, and Hope tried to enter, even though Ben had forbidden it, but it was in vain. Hope's curiosity was higher. The cabin did seem new, the equipment and furniture were still clean. And it turned out that the scream came from a video. After knowing this, they wanted to go out again, but Sean heard a voice from another door. A man appeared in red. The man was the property manager. The cabin was still under construction, although it was almost finished. The man also threatened Hope and the others that they would be reported to the police for entering someone's property without permission. Hope didn't want any problems between them, especially since Hope was interested in renting the cabin as a filming location. According to her, the cabin was very suitable, especially since the location was near the forest. Ben certainly didn't agree and was afraid, but Hope convinced him and continued to make a deal with the manager. Initially, the deal didn't work out, but in the end the deal was made with a down payment given to the manager. But the funny thing was that the manager didn't want to sign the agreement on paper, he only wanted to shake hands instead. Yes, in the end, Hope and the others were lucky to find a suitable location for filming their film. Their friends would follow in the morning. Hope also told her supervisor that they had found a good location and cabin. Before resting, they prepared things for filming, such as pulling cables to several corners. At that time, they found several discarded dolls in quite scary conditions. Maybe they belonged to local residents. In the meantime, Hope quickly seemed to see a figure of a man standing in the bushes. But when she looked again, the figure was gone. Maybe Hope was just tired and needed a rest. In the end, they returned to the cabin and looked at the photos on the camera. How surprised Hope and Ben were to see a figure of a man wearing a mask, even though they didn't see anything earlier. Since then, they started to panic and feel a little scared. They locked the doors and windows to avoid unwanted things. Then not long after, Hope was surprised by the appearance of their supervisor named Kevin. Kevin couldn't get in because all the doors were locked. Why did Hope do that? Kevin said. Hope wanted to explain, but she was also afraid that it would only make their project fail. Kevin actually didn't want strange things to happen there. But finally, Kevin asked for an explanation of why the doors and windows were locked. Hope explained calmly and showed a photo of the man wearing a mask in the forest earlier. They felt that the man was watching them, and they didn't know what his purpose was. Because of that incident, Hope didn't want to stay in the cabin. It was better for her to go home tonight than for unwanted things to happen. The terror began to be carried out by the masked man. He appeared behind Ben behind the window. Then not long after, they heard someone knocking on the front door, but when they checked, it turned out that no one was there. Kevin still thought maybe it was just kids from the next village who were playing a prank on them. As soon as they returned to the cabin, there was a knock on the front door again. But this time there were 3 people standing there wearing scary masks. Kevin bravely approached them to not disturb them. Kevin still thought that the three of them were just pranksters. But suddenly a hammer stabbed Kevin in the head until he died. Meanwhile, Sean, Ben, and Hope became very panicked. The terror began to be carried out openly by the masked people. Hope tried to call the emergency number, but her cell phone had no signal, even though it was still there. Not long after, their cabin lost electricity. It must have been the work of the three masked people. This would be a long night for them. Luckily, the three masked people did not dare to enter the cabin. Hope and Ben looked for something that could be used as a weapon. They found a knife just in case. Then they also found many CDs in the box. The CDs contained recordings of people who had stayed in the cabin who had become victims of the masked people. So Hope and her friends were not the first? The masked people would enter the cabin when they were asleep, so Hope was not allowed to sleep so they would not be attacked. Hope and Ben began to give up, asking them what they wanted. Why were they terrorizing them? The masked man wanted Hope. Who knows what his purpose was? But that made Hope even more scared. Besides, it turned out that one of them was a woman. Hope tried to talk to her nicely, but the result was in vain. The woman opened her mask with one of her eyes deformed. Not long after, a car arrived, and it turned out to be one of their friends named Kate. Unfortunately, Kate also became a victim of the masked man. She was dragged and then mutilated. The video recording was sent to Hope's cell phone, and it added to the horror that happened that night. Hope and the others thought about escaping using Kate's car, which was still running, but the tires had been deflated by them. The masked man tried to make Hope and her friends get out of the cabin. They spilled oil in front of the house to scare them. The masked man seemed to have run out of patience. They managed to get into the cabin through a secret passage. Hope and the others made a plan to escape from the cabin together. When they were outside, the main thing they did was run as fast as they could and get away from the masked men. Not long after, one of the masked men surprised them. Hope ran away. Ben managed to kill one of the masked men with a knife. Hope ran towards their car, but the masked men carrying a chainsaw appeared. While Sean did not survive being killed by them, Hope managed to escape and saw a car passing by. It turned out to be the property manager. Hope asked him for help to be taken to the police station. But unfortunately, the manager turned out to be part of them and instead took Hope back to the cabin. Hope, who was carrying a knife, then killed the manager and ran away, while Ben was still around the cabin until he also did not survive. Now only Hope was left standing. He tried to distract one of the masked people, and when there was a chance, Hope hit him with a rock. Not long after Hope met the one carrying a chainsaw, Hope was hit, but he managed to retaliate using a knife. Hope managed to get through that night with sacrifice. When the incident took place, Hope recorded every action. One of the producers was interested in the documentary made by Hope. It was really tense and cost many lives. Hope was happy that she could get through it all. But in her report, Hope met 5 masked people, while only 4 people whose bodies the police found. So where's the other one? Hope doesn't mind that. The important thing is that she is free from the masked people, and moreover, Hope is sure that her location will not be found. Unfortunately, Hope was wrong. One night, while she was sleeping, her house was entered by the remaining masked humans who tried to kill her. And finally, the film ended.